Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 1. The game that began the series that has spawned some of the greatest Dragon Ball games of all time. And Sparking Zero. I'm joking, it's just enjoyable to poke fun at that game because people get so butthurt. But let's see how the game that started it all holds up in today's day and age. Let's start by discussing the meat of any Dragon Ball game, shall we? The combat. The combat in this game is severely underbaked. Every character has the same combos, like in every game in the series, but to a lesser degree, and they look much less cool. You've got your Ki Wave, your Gut Punch, and your Smash Attack, which you can't perform raw. There's a bar in the bottom right corner that charges up the more hits you land. If it's green, you do a little stun hit. If it's yellow, you knock them away a medium distance. And if it's red, you can do a full smash attack. I'm not gonna act like I'm a combat expert. I'm decent at the game. But what's important is it doesn't entice me to even want to learn more about the combat. It's just so boring. I mean, look at how short the tutorial section is. It just shows you how shallow the game is combat-wise. Even the CPU does the same thing over and over again. When they're punching you, they love to spam this Ki Wave that took me a while to realize you can just sidestep. But that shit would break my guard all the time early on, and let me tell you, this game was designed to wear down your controller because it takes forever spamming all your shape buttons to regain your ki after a guard break. And when you get knocked down, you have to spam them as well. I'm glad they reduced it to one button in the next game. Speaking of the CPU, whoever programmed it must have been trolling, because they are horny for their ki blasts. They spam it non-stop. I was convinced some of them would never stop if I didn't attack them. It's kind of insane. Just look at the start of the CPU versus CPU battle I staged. This went on for 30 seconds. One thing I will say that I do like about this game that isn't in any other game in the series is when you get sent flying by a smash attack or a rush attack, a random series of buttons will appear that if you press in time, will let you recover and fly back at your opponent. I don't necessarily like that it forces you to rush back. I think that should be an option. But I like the idea of recovering from an attack being a minigame of precision and speed and pressing specific buttons, rather than just spamming the same one over and over. When the game is on a hard difficulty though, it's just annoying as fuck. Agonizingly frustrating. I fucking sweated trying to beat Cell in the final fight in the Cell game's World Tournament mode. After losing a few times in a row to this guy, I just resorted to using Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and still I barely escaped with my life. It's just far too easy to guard in this game. You can't get a real combo going against a decent CPU. This is extremely apparent when you put the CPU on max difficulty and watch them fight each other. They just guard everything past the second or third hit. It really stifles the gameplay and prevents any cool combos from happening. Not that there are many cool combos in the game. When you fight really strong opponents, the only real way I found to win consistently was by spamming ki blasts and following it up with blast attacks. They struggle to deal with that for some reason. Super armor characters are particularly annoying in this game. Like even being at max power doesn't cause them to move. You just basically have to spam your special attacks at them. Though I read somewhere online that it's ridiculously easy to beat them if you learn some heavy finisher loop that keeps them basically stun locked forever. But for a casual who doesn't know anything about those advanced tactics, they're just annoying. Now let's discuss the finishing moves in this game. There aren't really many unique looking attacks in this game. You've got your staples like Kamehameha and Big Bang Attack of course, but all the attacks happen so quick and don't feel too special, even when they're ultimates. There's nothing dramatic or cinematic about any of them. Every blast attack essentially has a nuke effect when you land it that blinds you, though it lasts far too long, allowing your opponent to recover and hit you back before you can even see a thing. It's like you're solar flaring yourself, even though you just successfully landed an attack. The rush attacks are all largely the same. You don't get anything character specific, like Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta having an ultimate impact, or Super Vegeta having a spirit breaking cannon. Only rarely they'll have necessary ones like Yamcha's Wolfang Fist. And all the rushes have these action lines around them, which I actually kind of like because it's reminiscent of the manga. And because all the rush attacks basically look the same, the action lines are probably a better call for this game as opposed to showing the stage in the background. The ultimate attacks are rarely anything special. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's is just a regular Super Kamehameha. They don't even have a Father-Son Kamehameha. Super Vegeto's Beam Sword Slash is the weirdest I've seen in any game. And then some attacks are straight up missing sound effects, like Super Saiyan Goku's Instant Transmission Kamehameha. or missing voice lines like Super Saiyan Trunks' Finish Buster using the Japanese voice instead of the English voice.
English, dude. English.
And then the favorite moves, as this game calls them, the ones that require stock, are fine. They do the job of adding some versatility to the game. And there are some character-specific ones like the Ginyu Force poses to go max power, or Kaioken, or Android barriers. So not much to say on them. It gets a little repetitive with the explosive waves and the after images, but they do the job. Overall, however, the combat in this game gets very boring, very fast. And I respect them trying out a new combat system, but it definitely needed more work, which of course for the next game they significantly improved the combat. But if you want me to do a revisit on Tenkaichi 2, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're new, and I'll get that done for you guys. Now let's move on to discussing the story mode. I really like how they present the story mode, which is called Z Battlegate here. With Mr. Popo greeting you and you entering the gate, unfortunately it's all downhill from there. To its credit, it has essentially every single fight that took place in Dragon Ball Z, even stuff like Krillin facing Yamcha at Kami's lookout while training for the Saiyans, or fights that didn't even happen like Gohan vs. Dodoria, which was just a kick in the anime. And everything in between as long as the characters are in the game, which is something I respect at first, then just starts to feel like a chore when they got me fighting a Cell Jr. 7 goddamn times in a row. Though when it comes to the movies in Dragon Ball GT, they only really include one fight for each of those story modes, even though there technically could be more. And then they don't have any Dragon Ball story in here at all. There is one Dragon Ball-esque what if, but not an official Dragon Ball story. Dragon Ball never gets any love. It never lets you fight as the villains in the normal arcs, but they do have separate villain arcs you unlock where you just fight as the main villain from each arc. But weirdly enough, those sections actually are missing some fights. And they lead into half-assed what-ifs where the only real what-if is that you just win the fight that they lost in the series. Not much else happens. Frieza fights cooler after beating Goku on Namek and stuff like that, but it really isn't that captivating. I guess they could have just not included this, so I like that it's here at least. But the final what-if fights of the villain sagas generally don't make any sense in the context of the rest of the fights. Like in Cell's what if, for example. You fight Super 17 after defeating Trunks, Vegeta, Goku, and Gohan, who all say the exact same thing after you beat them, by the way.
I failed. I don't deserve to live.
But when you fight Super 17, you're both talking about defeating Goku, but you just beat Goku. So it doesn't really make any sense. And the main arc fights where you have to lose to the bad guys, you just have to survive until the timer runs out, which can be really tedious and annoying considering you do almost no damage to the opponent in these types of fights. I started to resort to this cheesy strategy just to let the timer run out, so that I didn't have to redo the same fight over and over again. But sometimes I just flew away like a little pussy. Though even when you just run away the whole fight and barely do any damage, they act like you beat their ass in the post-match dialogue. It's very strange. Like when you beat Cell with Tien, Cell acts like he actually lost in the dialogue when he should barely have a scratch on him, and Tien should be the one on the floor. There are really only 3 win conditions in the story mode. Either survive until the timer runs out, beat your opponent either within a given time period or not, or beat them using a specific attack, which I kinda like that they make you win a certain way to clear some stages. My OCD appreciates things like that. The cutscenes are all in-engine and rarely do the characters move from their one standing spot where they just talk, but occasionally they'll get creative like this Gogeta vs Janemba post-fight cutscene. They really spiced it up there, huh? Even from a dialogue perspective though, the cutscenes are pretty underwhelming. Whilst I'm glad that they're cut short because they're not very good, they tell you almost nothing about the story. Like when you first beat Cell with Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, he just goes, "Oh no, I lost." And that's it. Next fight you cut to Cell fighting Vegeta, like what the fuck just happened? You'd be completely lost if you didn't know the story already. There are random little what-if fights sprinkled throughout the main story mode as well, like Goldo vs Chaozu, Bardock vs Goku, or Super Saiyan 1 Trunks vs Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta very randomly. Though they don't do much with them. They're very short-lived, but you do get some funny moments like Chaozu calling Goldo fat and smelly. When you get to the Majin Buu saga, however, the dialogue gets particularly dry. Nobody says anything. It's barely anything more than a pre-match dialogue exchange you would get in regular offline fights.
It's my turn to fight.
What? You think this is a game?
Well, come on!
I'll teach you, scum.
Like, for example, Super Boost does the exact same things in his dialogue after his fights with Gotenks and with Gohan. It's bad. I do want to give credit to whoever put together the narrated King Kai scenes though, because there's very specific shots in there that are kinda accurate to the anime, and considering they could only use the game engine, it's kinda impressive and I respect the commitment. Stuff like having Yamcha do a Z search whilst in the city as if he's looking for the androids, or have Goku stand on a cliff, then show a shot of a Great Ape, then Super Saiyan 4 Goku to represent his transformation in the Baby Saga, and little things like that that shows they really worked with what they had. So whichever person was tasked with doing that job, you deserve a raise 20 years ago. But sometimes King Kai takes forever to continue his voice lines in the narration. It's kind of funny actually, just how long of a pause he'll take in what you'd expect to be a flowing narration.
Damn, who kept him from his goal of eternal youth. His anger would turn to the rest of the universe.
I do like his narration overall though. He even gives a sort of poetic narration of the what if where you win as Majin Buu.
Until a certain realization of loneliness came over him. And now the screams of Majin Buu are all that echo over this land. And there is no one to hear them.
I like that one. Probably the coolest what if is the villains coming back to beat the Z Fighters, but I feel like they end it before it could have gotten even cooler. When King Kai says, "This evil gang came out victorious, but there can only be one ruler of this world." They show them fighting in the background, but you don't actually get to do these fights. That would have been cool. The story mode is held back largely by the repetitiveness of the combat, because it's just not that fun to play. But even from a storytelling perspective, it's severely lacking. You cannot use this game as a way to refresh your memory of the Dragon Ball story, because it skips almost every important piece of dialogue. I respect their attempts at what ifs, and a couple are even kinda cool, though having played through the story mode once now as an adult, I have no real desire to replay any part of the story again, whatsoever. Next, let's discuss the other big mode in this game, Ultimate Battle. Ultimate Battle mode is so tedious, but that mainly has to do with the fact that the gameplay sucks, yet again. I actually like the mode. Ranking up from 100 to 1, not that it could be bothered when replaying to actually get all the way to number 1, but from what I've read from people's reviews online, and from what I remember as a kid, it just gets ridiculously hard when you get to the higher ranks. And hard as in the AI just have more health and do more damage. So not a fun type of hard. The game has 95 characters though, so this mode is kind of fitting that you fight essentially every character once to rank up, with a few extra Hercules sprinkled in. Though they try and spice it up by having characters in higher ranks challenge you so you can jump some rankings sometimes, or drop some if you lose. And I like that little tidbit, it spices it up sometimes. And then occasionally you have breakthrough characters that just pop in to beat your ass randomly without a chance to increase your rank. The key with this mode is just to pick characters with good, spammable attacks. That way you can ensure good damage regularly, and also get through the fights quicker. But I'll be honest, unless this is your only Dragon Ball game in 2025 for some reason, I can't imagine anybody wasting their time getting to rank 1 more than maybe once, just to say you've done it. So overall, I do love the Ultimate Battle mode concept and even the presentation, but inevitably the gameplay holds it back. Next, the World Tournament mode. Not much to say here, to be honest. There's 4 types of World Tournament modes. The regular World Tournament mode with 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and 5 rounds, and then the Cell games, which is 5 rounds. The World Tournament ring out system is pretty easy to take advantage of here, so it's fairly easy to win that way. I like the announcer in the mode, how he says everybody's name and sets up the fights dramatically.
Contestant Vegeta versus Contestant Great Saiyaman! This is a breathtaking battle!
And then the Cell game, same thing, just with Cell instead.
Vegeta versus Frieza!
Though like I mentioned before, that motherfucker is difficult to beat. I low-key raged playing the Cell games. World Tournament mode's main draw is the randomness to it, just as it is in every game. A bunch of randomly selected characters fighting each other with a bunch of matchups that you wouldn't regularly see. Not much to write home about, but it does the job it's supposed to do. Now let's discuss the Dueling Mode. In Dueling Mode, you can either battle against a computer, battle against a friend in split screen mode, or have the computers battle each other. There's no team battles here like there is in the subsequent Tenkaichi games. Everything is one-on-one. As I mentioned, this game has 95 characters in total, ranging from Dragon Ball to GT, and a total of 11 maps, so pretty respectable for a first installment in the series. Though there's no Goku mid or Goku end, or Piccolo early and Piccolo end, there's just one version of these types of characters. Only the characters that grow up or change dramatically, like Gohan or a Scout or Vegeta, have separate characters. There's no transforming mid-fight, however, which I personally don't like because it's a staple of Dragon Ball, but I can see how people who prefer a more balanced gameplay experience would like it, so that more bias isn't given to picking transforming characters in matches. That's not to say the characters are balanced here. Everybody has different stats, and a Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta will still dummy a Hercule. There are also password characters you can unlock in this game through a Shenron wish, that are just maxed out versions of characters already in the game. So all their stats are level 7 out of 7. But you can only have one unlocked at a time, which is kinda disappointing that you can't have at least 2 to fight against each other. The maps are generally too small, you can rarely do more than one smash attack before often hitting the side borders and messing up your chain. There are cool little details on certain maps though. Like for example, the Islands map has Kame House in the distance, or the Cell Games map has the TV reporter and cameraman on a rock in the background. I like those little touches. And honestly, I do like this city map better than maybe any city map in any Dragon Ball game, aside from the size, because I've always liked this base looking thing. I don't know why. And also the little tunnel area that adds some verticality to the map. There's very little unique dialogue in this game. Only some characters have unique lines with each other.
Are you Kakarot?
My name is Goku, and I'm from Earth.
But they don't get very creative with it. Nor do they even have much variation. Most characters will say the exact same thing over and over every time you win, as opposed to having 2 or 3 revolving lines. It's a 20-year-old game, so I won't shit on the graphics much, mainly because the emulator I played it on actually made it look pretty good, especially the character models. I mean, look at this Kid Gohan, for example. That is the crispest Kid Gohan I've ever seen in any Tenkaichi game, for real. Oh yeah, that reminds me, there's also no alternate outfits in this game, so everyone is stuck with the same fit and same colorway. Kinda disappointing. The CPU battles, as I mentioned before, are pretty dull due to how the gameplay is designed. You're not really gonna see any nail-biting battles as far as the CPU is concerned. And I'm not sure why they decided to have the health bars be so low. There's only 1 bar for each character. Maybe they knew they had a bad combat system, so that was done intentionally, but it makes the fights a little too short. As far as Z items are concerned, they're all pretty basic, raising things like attack, speed, defense, and so on, and ones that can recover health over time or increase your lock-on range, but nothing very cool or unique like an aura change or a halo that you can equip. Just overall, pretty bland stuff. I wanted to mention that I heard a recurring complaint when reading some reviews online that Z items don't work sometimes. Like you'll attach one to a character, and they'll do the same damage or even less. But I tested this out with a few characters and didn't find any issues, so maybe it's just a glitch with a couple of items in the game that I didn't see. But I must say, I really enjoyed the item fusion section, where you can unlock a couple dozen new characters by fusing purple Z items, which are obtained mainly through the story mode, because it was kind of like its own puzzle section. So for example, Galactic Warriors plus Seal Release yields Bojack, or Frieza's older brother plus Super Transformation yields Final Form Cooler. And I'll be honest, the most fun 20 minutes I had in this game was mixing and matching the different Z items to get these characters. There was just something so therapeutic about it. Maybe it's because I just played the story mode for 3 hours, I don't know. As long as I'm complimenting things about the game, I will say that the soundtrack is really good here. But it's mostly from Budokai, so I can't give it too much credit. They're mostly reused songs, and also they're plagiarized, so that ain't cool. Though the main theme of the game from the title screen and the character select screen, I do actually really like. The opening movie is good, definitely the worst of the series, but still enjoyable. Though this part where Goku and Vegeta are eyeing each other down always killed me as a kid. I couldn't do a video on Tenkaichi 1 and not mention that moment. Another thing I like is when you do offline battles, they place you in random parts of the map to start the fight. So you're not always face to face, and you have to start the fight by locking onto your opponent. Other than the locking on part, I actually like how you start at random points of the map. It adds a bit of dynamism to offline battles. Did I use that word right? And another thing is if you leave the screen idle for long enough, you'll get random characters flying by it one after another. It's a nice little bit of seasoning to add to the game. Something that games nowadays don't seem to ever bother to do. And then there are actually a couple attacks I particularly like in this game as well. Better than almost any other Dragon Ball game. Like Yamcha's Spirit Ball attack. I like the approach of just keeping the camera to the third person view rather than doing fancy things with it or making it a cutscene. It makes it feel like you're actually controlling the attack. Super 17's Hellstorm is obnoxiously long in this game, and it's hilarious. And then Captain Ginyu's body change doesn't look great, but you actually get to use the opponent's attacks when you switch bodies with them. Might not be lore accurate, but I like that. And then Hercule has to have the best perception in any game. It's great. So there are good things in this game, it's not all bad. Though the combos are all the same, the way the characters attack are specific to them, the way their perception is specific to them, like Tien's perception is different from Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's, and things like that. So I can appreciate some of the thought and care that went into the combat and other parts of the game. I didn't touch on the character illustration section, but it's nothing special. There's no real presentation there. You have to read everything yourself, and they're just screenshots of the characters from in-game. You can't even inspect the character models. Though respect to whoever was tasked with writing up all the character bios, because they're actually well written and informative, with occasional mistakes. There's also a Shenron system in this game with the Dragon Balls being gathered in the story mode. Initially, I really liked the Dragon Ball gathering system in this game. You have to break a structure in the story mode to find one, then touch it to collect it. Kinda cool the first time, but gets pretty annoying over time. It's just that sometimes it feels like the movement system is fighting against you when you're trying to dash. So gathering those Dragon Balls while facing an opponent can be really frustrating. It's better how they made it in BT3, where you would just break a structure and gather it automatically. When you do gather all the Dragon Balls, you can unlock a few new characters, and a new battle gate for story mode, or unlock password characters. So, that's everything this game has to offer. Overall, a very undercooked video game that just needed more time in the oven. And it got that in Tenkaichi 2, but unfortunately this first game is not one I'd recommend going back and trying out for any reason beyond a 10-minute curiosity check. This was a great stepping stone to the second game. Sort of a cake without the icing. And also lots of holes in the cake. And I've heard people say that Sparking Zero could be that for a Sparking Zero 2. That's yet to be determined. But with that being said, if you made it to the end of this video, let me know if you have any memories or thoughts of this game. Have you played it since you were a kid? Did this video make it look a lot different than you remember? Because it was definitely different than I remembered. Leave your thoughts down below, we can discuss the game. I don't actually hate the game in any way. I just don't think it's very good. And even for its time, it was just okay. But if you want me to talk about a good Tenkaichi game, this game's successor, Tenkaichi 2, again, make sure to like the video. Subscribe if you're new for more of these longer form types of videos. I actually really do enjoy making these, even though it's a lot more effort. And if I get good feedback on it, I'll know to keep doing it. With that being said, I love you all, take it easy, and peace.